Hey everyone, it's Daniel, and it's day 5 of my 30-day video challenge. It's very late at night while I'm recording this video, and I didn't sleep a lot last night, so I'm a little groggy, but I wanted to make this video because I made a commitment to doing this 30-day challenge, and I wasn't going to let a day go by and not do it, because then it would be easy to skip it tomorrow, or kind of lowers the threshold. So if I just stick with this, it gets easier and easier, and this kind of this vulnerability and putting myself out there that I'm practicing gets easier. So I'm making it a habit, whether I'm energetic or tired. I'm gonna be doing this. So I didn't have too much of a plan for this video, but I had one thing written down yesterday that I wanted to talk about, and it's related to some stuff I've been processing about this psychedelic experience I had this year, fairly recently. And I think I mentioned this in my first or second video. I kept having these images of the Nazis from Philip K. Dick's Man in the High Castle, and playing with this idea that there are, essentially that there are forces greater than ourselves working towards good and towards evil, and the kind of the intuition that these forces are more than perhaps metaphors. Maybe there's something real to it existing in the world, and I'm going to kind of go back on what I said, because I don't want to make any metaphysical assertions that that evil is actually existing in the world, or that it's not, and that we live in a purely material universe. I think, frankly, no human is qualified to make that call. Who is to say that a hyper advanced primate from Planet 3 is qualified to determine what is the ultimate reality? So I think I would relegate my claim to the kind of the realm of psychology. And we're going to say that within the psyche, within the psychology of human beings, good and evil is a real phenomenon. You go to the movie and you immediately recognize who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. And when you're acting in the world, we kind of we react in our body and in our emotions and cognitively in the same exact way. And because we are creatures evolved from lower order creatures, because we come from a line of creatures that has been selected by evolution, you might say that the cognitive tools that have been given to us, that we've inherited to survive and act in the world, that those those kind of that way of thinking, because it helped us survive, might be one of the most real things, at least from the Darwinian perspective, because we were we evolved to think in terms of good and evil as an adaptive strategy, and it was successful because we're all alive. So to deny the reality of this, at least the utility of this way of thinking, I think would be a mistake. So at least in the realm of psychology, I'm going to say that good and evil are very real, and they should be taken seriously. So with that kind of groundwork, that explanation, the concept that I wanted to talk about was the spirit of war, because if you grant the reality in some way of evil, and you start to look out into the world and into other people's hearts and into our own hearts, you'll notice that those evil forces are they're intelligent, they're active, they're self-organizing, and therefore, on the side of good, to fight for the good, or to bring about the good, we also have to mount sufficient opposition. We have to organize. We have to counteract the organized, legitimate, very real forces of evil. So this is a direct contradiction to the materialist paradigm that evil doesn't exist. And this is even a contradiction of basically kind of like Christian theology, which kind of takes the position that since God made everything, there is no really, there's no ultimate evil. Everything that appears evil is merely a less perfect or a less good or lacking the good. So, and the psychological evidence or the phenomenological evidence doesn't seem to support that in any way. It appears, according to psychology and phenomenology, that evil as a force is just as real as good. And you also get into a bit of a vicious cycle if you deny, if you say that what appears to be bad is actually just the lack of good. You can't say anything is good without saying something else is bad in relation to that. So there can't be a universe, or there can't be a differentiation of good unless you kind of unconsciously admit that there is something that's not as good as whatever is good. So you are automatically, by making value judgments, which people do all the time, you're implicitly buying into the assumption that there is good and that there is bad. And it doesn't have to be ultimate or kind of like in the world good or bad. You can still psychologize it, but nevertheless we act as if, and it's an adaptive strategy to act as if things are good or not good. So the only thing I wanted to add on to all this, which kind of just rambling, but I want to add on to this that there's, if you buy into this and then you start to view the world in these terms, and you start to get a little angsty. I mean, maybe this is just me, I'm kind of a young guy, but it makes you want to go out into the world and fight, the noble battle, the original meaning of the word jihad, but kind of, a spiritual warrior. And I think this kind of energy, this passionate energy to awaken other people and fight against evil, is a necessary. Again, it's an adaptive strategy. We need this. We can't ignore it, and we can't take this kind of hands-off approach and say, well, everything is fine as it is, because it's clearly not. So if you admit that things need to change, and then you admit that there are evil forces operating in the world or in the psychology of humans, then it seems natural that there would be an inclination, at least for some people, with this this kind of mythology or this concept arises of the noble fight, of the noble war. And so I was going back and forth with one of my friend Melinda on this subject, and she was kind of picking apart my argument and asking me a few questions about it. And what I got down to was that this idea of war sounds violent. It sounds like I'm accusing the bad guys of doing the exact thing that I'm now doing. But I don't think that's the case, and this is the reason why. Because my version of the war against evil is not a real war. It's but it requires the essence or the spirit, kind of the spirit of the warrior, and that kind of that uncompromising, sharp, clear, and resolute dedication to truth and freedom. And I think that is the thing that the dominators of this culture would like to train out of us. They want to confuse us with misinformation and kind of an intellectual judo, using the principle of nonviolence in a maladaptive way, and convincing people to not fight when they see something wrong happening in the world. So I think we need to, fundamentally, I think we all need to wake up to this, kind of embodying the spirit of the warrior within each of us and carrying that out into the world, calling bullshit when necessary, and in a metaphorical sense, but taking no hostages, right? Just kind of going out into the world and conquering in the name of good, but in a non-violent way. So this is the spirit of the warrior is different than kind of becoming an actual physical warrior, So we're talking around something that can be a bit confusing, but this is kind of just indicating to me that I need to think about it more, write about it more, understand it more, because I think there is something here, and I think that our consumerist culture has taken away our option for spiritual fight, and I think that's what's causing people existential angst, and I think it's reclaiming that instinct to fight against evil and make sure it's channeled and directed in a healthy way is going to change the way that citizens and ordinary people relate to their governments, and it's going to change how we as societies relate to our environment and our planet and each other. So I think this has huge implications, and I just need to keep thinking about it. But for now, since I've put out most of what I've been thinking about, I think I'm going to stop the video here, and I'm going to go to sleep. But I hope you guys enjoyed. This was an interesting topic for me. I wasn't totally comfortable talking about it, but I wanted to practice, and I wanted to put it out there, and I wanted to speak a little bit about this idea of the war against evil and channeling this spirit of the warrior. So until tomorrow, until next time, take care, you guys, and wake up. Become a warrior. Use the sword of insight to chop off the head of ignorance. And I will see you guys tomorrow.